19.5. This is the deed, the rest of the deed. Let's go.
Here is the documentation of it. The Golden Age published in their publication the deed for Beth-Sarim.
So in the book Salvation, written by Rutherford, it talks a little bit about Beth-Sarim. It looks like Proclaimers is quoting from this section of Salvation, which explains the claimed purpose of Beth-Sarim. And Salvation says, the title to Beth-Sarim is vested in the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society in trust to be used by the president of the society and his assistants for the present and thereafter to be used at the disposal of the aforementioned princes on the earth. And if and when the princes do return, and some of them occupy the property, such will be a confirmation of the faith and hope that induced the building of Beth-Sarim.
Now, why wouldn't the Proclaimers mention such an important fact?
Let's look at what the Proclaimers book says. The book Salvation informs us that the purchase of the property and the building of the house was that there might be some tangible proof that there are those on earth today who fully believe in God and Christ Jesus and his kingdom, and believe the faithful men of old will soon be resurrected by the Lord, be back on earth, and take charge of the visible affairs of the earth. That's where it stops in the quotation of Salvation. But compare that to what other phrases the Salvation book says, and what do you get out of that if you compare those two quotations?
There's no comparison. They don't include something that important in the psychology of it. You know,
what specifically?
Why wouldn't you want the modern day Jehovah's Witnesses to know something like that? Unless you don't want them to know, so you don't bring it up and include it.
What are they neglecting to mention, and why? That's the important question. It's not just that this was going to be faith-inspiring, that they believe there would be a resurrection on earth, but they believe that they would be resurrected on earth and brought to the mansion and live in the mansion. Proclaimer's book doesn't mention anything about that. It doesn't quote the whole quote. It's quoted out of context. And why do they even have that thought to begin with? It's because of the 1925 fiasco. Because Rutherford said, oh, the faithful men of old are going to be brought back in 1925. And that's going to be when millions now living will never die. What happened? Well, now it's not going to be in 1925. It's going to be in the 30s, and they're going to live in San Diego at my mansion. Really?
And all the princes on earth will come and rule. That never happened. Well, 6 years later, they need to build a mansion for them.
Yeah,
so does it all justify itself or it means in the end? I mean, I'm confused on this one. I don't know what they were thinking, to be quite honest with you.
It's claimed that this mansion is the evidence that what they're claiming is true. That's a stretch. It's hard.
And
for me
that's why I'm confused, because somebody got a mansion out of the deal.
Well, he lived comfortably in it anyway, and died there.
Which we're talking a considerable number of years. He had a summer residence and got out of the cold New York winters. I've always questioned the Beth-Sarim building in the first place. A lot of people don't know about it, so they can't question it. But I remember even having discussions with family members over the Beth-Sarim and pointing out what we're pointing out now. Why do you need a mansion? You know, why do you need it to be in California?
What does God need with a mansion?
This starship, could it carry my wisdom beyond the barrier?
It could, yes!
Then I shall make use of this starship.
It will be your chariot!
Excuse me?
It will carry my power to every corner of creation.
Excuse me, I'd just like to ask a question. What does God need with a starship?
Bring the ship closer.
I said, what does God need with a starship?
Jim, what are you doing? I'm asking you a question.
Who is this creature?
Who am I? Don't you know? Aren't you God?
He has his doubts.
You doubt me?
I seek proof.
Jim, you don't ask the Almighty for his ID.
Then here is the proof you see.
Why is God angry? Why? Why have you done this to my friend?
He doubts me.
You've not answered his question. What does God need with a starship?
Do you doubt me?
I doubt any God who inflicts pain for his own pleasure.
What does God need with a mansion?
And who was it for again?
Yeah.
Because they're in denial. The modern day witnesses are in denial that the ancient worthies, as they were called back then, would come back to Earth and rule with them. So they had no idea about that.
That's interesting because you should say that, because we're going to discuss that in just a little bit about what change happened in Watchtower doctrine regarding these faithful men of old, and the timing of that change is also very interesting. But we'll get into that in just a little bit. But so far, we've gone through 6 points now of these claims in the Proclaimer's book about Beth-Sarim. All of the points so far have something lacking, that they're not telling the audience, or they're purposely hiding from the audience. So far as not telling the whole truth of the story. We only have a few more points left, and it gets even more interesting as we go.